We are very proud to say that we are Pacific-driven or Pacific-led.
We do things as a community and we help each other out.
We are tied by that similar objective and mandate to support our countries, with their climate ambition, climate action plans, and be global leaders in climate action.
What is that saying? Necessity is the mother of innovation.
That's true.
Definitely.
It's a driver.
Yes. Shanila, you wanted to say something?
Yes, personally I'm very proud of what the Hub team has achieved, as one team during a pandemic, because many things were slowed, many things were delayed, but we learned to expect it, and we learned to live with it, work with it, but at the same time aim to deliver high quality output to our member countries. That's what we really aimed for, yeah.
I really like that. It's like leaning into the change, and just being able to expect the unexpected. I guess that's what the pandemic taught us, right?
But on a much lighter note, just add that I've never seen people so happy to go back to the office after once it's open, so it's a side effect as well.
That person wasn't me though.
It was me.
Hats off to everyone, kudos for everything that you've done, in the last 2 years. I mean, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. No, when everyone was talking about it, I actually felt it because I don't think we've actually sat down after we've come back to the office and have had these intimate discussions about what we actually did to adapt. So I'm glad we had this talk. And it certainly pays off that despite these challenges, we were able to achieve the results that we have achieved. So, talking about results, let's talk about that. NDC enhancement. Houston, at the beginning, we mentioned the 4 areas that we work in. So, NDC enhancement is one of the core things that we do. And if I'm correct, NDC Hub has supported Samoa, Vanuatu, Tonga and PNG in enhancing their NDCs. This is a question to Shanila and Rebecca as well. I know that in Samoa we've enhanced their NDCs and it has been launched as well. Is it this year? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, because that is an incredible result that we've achieved by enhancing their NDCs.
Samoa last year, the NDC have supported them to develop their second NDC, and it was submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, in July last year, July 2021. Now, that process, we worked very closely with our focal point ministry, and it just takes me back, to whatever we've just discussed already. I'm deviating a bit from the actual work we delivered, but that country ownership, we really saw it there. It was a tight time frame to deliver. We had around 3 months, because we were also working on investment planning and implementation roadmap for the NDC itself. So for the hub and for GGGI to be involved, at such a scale, to develop a country's nationally determined contribution, to update it, I should say rather, and help them to submit it to the UNFCCC was a really great feat on its own. What was the other important thing I would like to highlight is, of course, there's mitigation. Mitigation to climate change. It's important, and in addition to that, but adaptation to climate change is more important for us here in the region, where we are surrounded by this vast blue ocean. So it was really wonderful to see that adaptation was prioritized by Samoa in their second NDC. We had sectors such as the marine sector, which is such a valuable and core part of who Pacific Islanders are. It was included in the updated NDC, the second NDC, sorry. And I think just that country ownership and that country-driven leadership that we had, really helped us enhance and help Samoa to submit their NDC to the UNFCCC last year.
Well, congratulations on getting that done. And I like the fact that you mentioned that the enhanced one also has well-defined adaptation targets as well, compared to maybe the previous ones for every nation. So when we talk about adaptation targets, a very similar situation was with the PNG work that GIZ did, where adaptation targets were included into PNG's national determined contributions. Rebecca, would you like to share a bit more about that? What does it mean and what was the outcome of it?
Well, yes, GIZ supported PNG to include quantifiable adaptation targets in their enhanced NDC. So PNG submitted the enhanced NDC to the UNFCCC in 2020. And adaptation, I mean, as you said, Janila, adaptation it's important for the whole region. In PNG, about 78% of the land is covered by forests. So, I mean, you want to adapt, you want to protect that. And the goal of the work the NDC Hub supported was to really make very, very clear targets, clear measures, numbers, to really give PNG clear actions that they would undertake towards ensuring adaptation. And that resulted in, so for example, now PNG's enhanced NDC has these strong adaptation targets, for example, really prioritizing increased resilience of its population, making sure that food security is resilient, water and sanitation, that there's a resilient access to that. At least that's the target that's now in the NDC. The next step is working towards it. Similarly, targets for improved health and well-being, addressing climate-related diseases, targets for increased warning systems. So with these high-level targets, there's concrete plans and actions for how to work towards that.
Fantastic, that's lovely, and thank you for sharing that, and also focusing on adaptation, because in the Pacific, of course, there is a very core part of what we need as well, apart from mitigation, because we don't really emit that much. So it's basically we're emitting a negligible amount anyway. And so an identified combined investment need of 2.3 billion. That is what was identified, which basically means that we don't have the money, but we need that much to basically implement. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I believe GGGI has specifically worked in Fiji on that, Tuvalu. Are you able to share a bit more about what that means? What is investment planning when we talk about that?
Sure. So what GGGI through the NDC Hub work we did was prepare NDC implementation roadmaps and NDC investment plans, including a project pipeline in the countries which you mentioned. Now, investment planning helps identify the projects which are needed to achieve the overall NDC targets of a country. So this can be projects, it depends on the country's sector of priority. It can be projects in the energy sector, it can be projects in the land transport sector, in the maritime transport sector. Now, the 2.3 billion USD which you mentioned, of course, now that is the sort of consolidated value which I think, Rebecca, you calculated during the evaluation. Thank you for that. It was a really good stint you pulled up. So I think it just sort of goes to show, that how much investment is needed to help help these countries, at these 5 countries at least, achieve their NDC targets. If not all of it, at least portions of it, And I think all the work that we're doing, one way or the other, does contribute to achieving that target. So I think it's just important that, the projects which are in the investment plans, they are taken a step further, detailed concept notes are prepared, pre-feasibility studies for those projects are done, so that it could be shared with potential donors and funders to attract the funding which is needed. And now when we're just about to begin the 3rd phase of the NDC Hub, and we had the sort of potential scoping of the request in the planning meeting, and it was really wonderful to see that countries do see it as a natural next step that they want to implement, or at least begin to implement some projects that they have identified, in their investment plan. So I think it's a really good indicator of sustainability of the NDC Hub's work as well, and it's of course certainly a really wonderful indicator of how the countries can progress and achieve their NDC targets.
I really interested to find out more now about certain projects. And Vanda, I've heard that through PrEP, the development and installation of the biogas system, I think that's quite interesting. Can you tell us more about this and what benefit it brings?
So biogas systems basically take in any waste that can decay. So for example, when you're mowing the lawn, you throw in the cuttings, the grass cuttings. When you have leftover food or peelings from potato, taro, bananas, we chuck all of that in the digester. And so there's a specific type of bacteria that breaks down all the food materials, all the green waste, and produces a gas that we can use for cooking. So this particular biogas project that we're implementing in 2 of the schools in Vanuatu, Matebulu College and St. Patrick's College, will be very beneficial to the children, because it's not only is it a very effective waste management strategy, because it takes in all the waste, keeps your environment clean, but at the same time, it should give the children and the staff clean energy, clean gas to cook with. And the third benefit of biogas systems, there's an overflow. So when you're throwing in all the waste, the peelings and everything, some of the liquid would come out of the, and that's known as the overflow. That overflow can be very useful as an organic fertilizer. So a lot of the time, once diluted, you need to add a bit of water before you use it as a fertilizer for the plants. So, some of these boarding schools, they also have vegetable gardens for the students. And that also comes in handy. So not only will they be looking at saving money from buying gas from the shop, but they would also be saving money from buying the fertilizer from the shops, because they'll be using their own organic fertilizer for their plants. Now, a total of, from the 2 schools, a total of 1,073 students, and about 54% of those students would be females. So, there's a lot of benefits in there for the children. At the same time, while they're learning about, basic scientific facts at school, this is one hands-on, with our children in the Pacific. These are some of the things that the children can relate to when they are learning about science and climate change and, emission reductions in the classroom.
So from the biogas systems, we're now moving on to MRV systems. So Noel, the NDC Hub is supporting 6 countries in developing the MRV systems. I know that this is very critical, especially when we want to encourage transparent reporting to the UNFCCC. Now, this is so interesting but so technical as well. So as the MRV specialist of the NDC Hub, are you able to first tell us what is MRV? Why is it so critical in our work?
Everything is actually on the basis of numbers, because the number I'm putting forward in terms of really my mitigation target or adaptation target, it does have all the numbers behind it. Who does count those numbers is our actually colleagues. So each time we wanted to do something, we wanted to measure it, we wanted to monitor it, and also wanted to report it in a way that is transparent. The global community can actually look at back and take the stock from there. If we cannot measure, we cannot manage. And for the carbon or the greenhouse gas, I think we need to measure it, then we know where to reduce it.
Who was that who said that if you cannot measure it, it doesn't exist?
Yeah, probably that's the best way to say.
These numbers Noim was talking about, there will be a peer review and a peer pressure on the countries. All the experts looking at what you're reporting as a country. You do it voluntarily, but the world community is looking at it and raising the hand when they think it's not enough compared to what you proposed that you would be doing in your NDC or in your enhanced NDC. So that's part of the mechanism which is interesting. And MRV pays into that reporting and peer reviewing and global stocktake. Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear, from Amit and Anne-Claire, whoever wants to talk more about it first, on Nauru's NDC having a very strong emphasis on resilience to climate change through strengthening their water security.
We are very happy that we supported Nauru with this work on reviewing the Nauru Water and Sanitation Master Plan, which was done in 2017. Master Plan entails a country's vision to implement infrastructure activities with regards to certain area, and for Nauru this was water services. So what infrastructure they would like to put in place for water supply, or what infrastructure they want to put in place for sewage water treatment facilities. So they had requested the regional Pacific NDC hub to help them,
I just want to add that this project was especially implemented in Nauru because this is one of the priority raised by Nauru, but we know that this is something that is an issue for the other Pacific islands, and so I think one of the goals of the NDC hub is also to try to organize these exchanges between countries so that they can build a project in their countries that can take into account what has been done in Nauru. So this exchange of lessons learned is also very useful for the whole Pacific, and this is why the communication side of the NDC hub work is very important.
One more thing I want to add with regards to this project was the fact that we had worked with one of our divisions, the GM division within SPC, to deliver this work. And I think this work is an example of how we take something that has been done in country previously and repackage it, bring it up to the let's say to the standard, so that it could be used by the country for accessing finance. And just after we had done the review of master plan, this was taken up by the multinational banks, development partners, and they had started the discussion with the government of Nauru in regards to implementing some of the components of the master plan.
You remember that at the beginning we were saying that we're proud that we are demand driven, and I just wanted to mention a little example of Nauru as well, where they asked the NDC hub to help them develop the curricula of their schools to include climate change in order to support future Pacific leaders for climate action. So that's of the 4 pillars. It's capacity building of teachers, it's producing materials as well for the future generation of Pacific leaders. So it just shows that if you keep the criteria quite open, it has to do with NDCs almost full stop, then you receive a range of very different requests, and that makes it interesting as well our work.
Yes.
Our work as well. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Christian. Yeah. And I think it would be good at this point to wrap it up nicely with a little bow to talk about what's next, for the hub. You've done so much, in the past few years. Are you going to be looking at more requests? I hear there's a 10-year strategy in place. Perhaps we could ask Christian to elaborate more on that.
We are at the end of the second phase of the NDC hub. We are very lucky to have very flexible, pragmatic donors. It's fun working with them, and they are supporting us for another phase. There might be a new donor coming on board as well. So 1st of July, the next phase starts until the end of 2024. And the good news is that we are opening up the window. We have been talking so much about these requests. We're opening up the window for the 14 Pacific Island countries for a third time. I'd like to thank our steering committee, who's guiding us all the time with the 4 members, and again the donors who believe in this and had patience at the beginning to let us build up, and now we're running and we're going into the next phase, and I very much look forward to that.
If you look at the way programs are being delivered, you have specialized project teams who's, for example, just working on water or just working on energy or disaster maybe. But here at NDC Hub we have all these technical people sitting in one office, and working on a multiple projects. So you have that conversation going on. I can go to Noem and ask what's going on with MRB, Shanila on a country investment plan, you know. So there's no boundaries as to what we cannot do at the hub. You know, I think that's one of the strengths. We take and almost do everything, whether it's disaster related, policy related, water related, renewable energy, education. Yeah, so I think that's one of the strengths we have at the hub, and we are going to develop that further moving forward in the third phase.
Simply put, you're like the Avengers. Everybody is different.
Oh, wow.
It has been a pleasure to meet everybody behind the work. And with that, again, thank you so much, everybody. We wish you all the very best, you know, in the next few years. Thank you very much. Binaka, Papatalama.